So here we are. We could discuss the different criteria that they've been looking at.
I think you need to. Yeah, you need to, because what we're trying to do here, the intention here tonight was to prep for these upcoming public hearings. The task force wants to hear from the public. And so we wanted to go over the criteria. I mean, basically, they want to hear from the public about their criteria, and they can also hear from citizens about their desire to have a redistricting commission as well. That's a legitimate source of comment.
Yeah. So, Byrick, are you in a position to put the criteria on the screen?
Yeah, if you want to share a screen, I can certainly put that up. Okay, I'm sharing.
Oh, no, I see it. I see it.
Okay, you see it now.
Okay, so thank you, Byrick and Lori, for your patience.
Okay, now
no problem.
I'm kind of surprised. I would have thought that this gallery shot would be, that my screen would actually partition so that the shot of us wasn't crowding my charts, but anyway,
I don't see Bruce and me anymore. I just see your chart, and you're in a postage stamp size at the bottom.
Yeah, like you're giving a lecture or something.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, now this is all
three of us. Okay. I have a 21-inch screen. That might have something to do with it.
Okay. All right. So basically, let me go over what the redistricting task force did. They met in September, October, and November to address recommendations of their criteria that go into mapping the city council districts. And after holding those 3 hearings where they heard some testimony from some city demographers and from other cities to find out what they're doing, they went over their proposed criteria and settled on a series of criteria that they want to propose for the next redistricting cycle, and they presented their interim report on December 1st to the city council. And then the other night, they held their Redistricting 101 seminar. And now we're getting together to prep for these upcoming public hearings on January 11, 19, and 21. Actually, the hearing on the January 19th is going to be in Spanish.
Okay.
The idea was that they wanted to present the public with a draft of their proposed criteria. They didn't want to just come with a blank slate, but rather to put down what their proposals were. Here's what we want to use as criteria for redistricting, and then take comments from the public at these hearings, and then fine tune their criteria to craft a final set of recommendations, which they'll take to the city council they'll have their final report February 4th, and then the next month make their final recommendations to the council at the first meeting in March, and the city council will adopt the recommendations 2 weeks later. All right. So this is what they had this is the set of criteria that they used in the last cycle. There were these criteria. The first one was that each of the districts should be approximately the same size. There should be no more than about 10% differential between the smallest and largest district, and that's pretty boilerplate. 2, there should be no fragmentation or cracking of minority communities, and no packing of the minority voters. No retrogression in the ability of minorities to participate in the electoral process. And if you don't know that term, retrogression, it's a strange term of art that it kind of means that there should not be a reduction in voting strength of a racial or ethnic minority based on the redistricting plan. And it involves balancing packing and cracking and the number of opportunity districts. An opportunity district being the number of districts that are populated such that there's an opportunity for those districts to elect a representative council member.
Let me just interrupt for 1 second. Lori, are you familiar with the terms packing and cracking?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So given that little explanation, also sort of boilerplate is that they want their districts to be compact and contiguous. To have identity, if there are communities of interest, that have common economic or socioeconomic commonalities, that they try to, as best they can, to locate those in a single district. And that can be racial or ethnic. It can also be a confederacy of neighborhood associations as well. Those are valid interest groups. One rule that they've had for years was including areas inside and outside Loop 820 in a single district. In other words,
controversial. Yeah.
Yeah. In other words, the idea being that inside the loop is the old city, and outside the loop are newer development cities, and there's just the philosophy was that the people who are outside the loop they don't want to make them feel left out.
Okay.
They tend to have poor developments, higher property values, and then when they see their tax dollars being spent on the inner city, they might have some objections to that. And so when they're represented by the same representative, I don't even know how to explain it.
So I'll say a few words. So with the inside and outside stipulation, that means that a given councilman would have part of his district would be the economic machine that's really driving the city, as well as just the residential areas outside the loop.
Okay.
You can think of it as having some kind of economic muscle, or their vote on the council would actually influence part of the economic machinery of the city.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, there's something about it has to do with money. It is controversial for one thing. It tends to crack districts inside the loop, and it becomes more difficult to do this when you're going to 10 districts instead of 8, or
Right.
actually, yeah.
When we increase skinny, wedge-shaped regions for having both inside and outside. Let's just discuss the cracking. In 2011, most of the minorities were living within 820.
Mm-hmm.
In the loop. So by dividing it up this way, this reduced the percentage of any minority within a district. So this was a way of cracking with this other, with a fancy sounding criteria. So it sounded less onerous than it, but in fact it is onerous.
Yeah. Moving along, the last three are that they should have an integral number of voting precincts, not split up voting precincts in the districts. The districts should contain whole census blocks or block groups. And then finally, the districts should preserve incumbent constituent relations, which is to say, they take the residents of the incumbent into consideration when it comes to drawing the districts. On the surface of it, it sounds kind of sinister. Part of the reason is to keep the districts from being, say a council member from being drawn outside of their district, or from having 2 council members combined. But it does sort of get get more along the line of protecting the council member instead of the public. So anyway, these 10 criteria were what they used in the last cycle, and they were kind of the point of departure for the consideration this time. Now, if we go forward, we talk about minority opportunity districts. These are the minority, white and minority population characteristics of the district at that, I think at that time, back in 2011.
Yep.
And so you can see that your whitest districts are District 7 and Districts 3 and 4, especially District 3. There's a pretty substantial, the Hispanic community is pretty well spread throughout all of the districts. You can see that 20 between 20 and 30 in some of these districts, and then concentrated in Districts 2 and District 9. And so Districts 2 and 9 were ostensibly your Hispanic opportunity districts. The total Black plus Hispanic for District 2 was amounted to 68%, and it was just shy of that. It was more like 64% in
Right.
District 9. District 5 and District 8 are your two, what you'd call Black opportunity districts. There's no district in town that has more than 50% Black population, but at the same time, there's a substantial Hispanic population that allows you to potentially elect minorities there. And so we have 3 districts that are represented by minority council members.
Yes, so potentially District 9 should have been able to elect an Hispanic, but they did not. But the one thing this chart doesn't show is the total percentage of Blacks and Hispanics in the city. And I think now it's about 40% or close to 40% Hispanic. Do you recall if that was true in 2011, Byrick?
I don't remember what the split was in the last census.
Yeah, I think in 2011 maybe it was more like 35 or something.
Yeah. Okay.
And now the city is about 19 or 20% Black. I don't know. I think that might have actually decreased slightly.
Okay.
I know
20% Black and 40% Hispanic.
Yes,
that's right. Yeah. And now the United Hispanic, I will say in the last cycle, they did open the process up to submit their own maps, and the United Hispanic Council submitted 3 maps, and they were pushing for a little bit higher percentage in this District 9. They were getting into the 60%, and the city rejected some of their proposals because of how it abutted other neighboring districts. But the sweet spot seems to be targeting 65 to 75% minorities. So in addition to that, they went and they looked at the criteria for other cities. And one of the criteria they looked at was Austin in the recent times. So in the post 2011-2010 census, again, they're complying with the Constitution. Again, they want roughly equal population with plus or minus 5%, comply with the Voting Rights Act and other laws, geographical contiguity, respect the geographical integrity of communities of interest, compactness. You'll see a lot of familiarities here. Use boundaries of existing precincts, geographically identifiable boundaries, and do not consider the place of residence of incumbents. Similarly, they looked at San Antonio, again, there was a relatively equal population, identifiable boundaries, communities of interest, whole voting precincts, base the plan on existing districts. In other words, try to minimize the impact to voters so that they can continue to live in something that's recognizably similar to their prior districts. Keep incumbents in their districts, so there is some protection there in San Antonio for incumbents. Compactness and contiguity, again, minimize the retrogression of minority districts and comply with the Voting Rights Act. And finally, there was Sacramento, which is another city in addition to Austin that has an independent redistricting commission. Make the districts substantially equal, again, comply with the US Constitution and Voting Rights Act, California Constitution, and other laws.
Similar.
Geographical continuity, and then various priorities for these other things. Do not consider the place of residence of any individual, including incumbent or candidate, and number the council districts the same. So with that input, they came back in November at their November meeting, and they considered these possible 12 criteria and voted on them and came up with a list of their priorities. So beginning with the favorite number one, approximately equal size, more than 10% difference between the smallest and largest. No packing, and here they actually proposed that the proportion of a minority population be no greater than 90%, which isn't much of a criterion. That's pretty high. You're pretty much packing if you're
near
75 or 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So this 90% wasn't much of a concession. The maximum number of will propose a minimum number of minority opportunity districts with a combined minority population above 50% in proportion to the city's combined population. So in other words, if, as Bruce said, 20% of your population is Black and 40% of your population is Hispanic, then in theory, up to 60% of your districts should be minority opportunity districts.
Right.
Well, there's a conflict there between, trying to get 6, if you've got 10 districts, if you're trying to get 6 minority opportunity, it's really hard to get them more than 50%. I mean, well, it's impossible for them to be more than 50, all of them to be more than 50% minority. So again, you're balancing this. You're doing the retrogression balance between the number of minority opportunity districts, the proportions. So, and ultimately they backed away from this this criterion of having a certain number of opportunity districts. Again, the retrogression, no retrogression in minorities to participate in the process. They actually, based on some input public testimony that they got from Bruce, they had actually adopted a metric for compactness. There are several different metrics for measuring compactness, and there's one, the most basic one is called Polsby-Popper, and we can describe that later, but unfortunately, the districts in Fort Worth are so highly irregular, either driven by
you blanked out.
Uh-oh, I think you froze again.
City.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to keep talking, and I'm unstable. Yeah. Okay. If this can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you now. You started
Okay.
to say Fort Worth is so, and then that's when you died.
Okay.
Or froze.
The city limits of Fort Worth and the precincts are so irregular
Okay.
that it is very hard to draw compact districts.
Yeah, let me just say one word about that. All of these formulas, like this Polsby-Popper, they compare, or most of them compare the shape of the district with a circle. And so the more circle-like, the greater their compactness metric is. The more jagged they are, the lower the number. And the city boundaries are extremely jagged, the Fort Worth city boundaries. So it's very, ideally, it would be nice to have a number, a metric like 0.3 or 0.4, but with the highly irregular boundaries we have, that seemed to be the best they could come up with.
Yeah,
right
yeah. And I'll have something to say at an upcoming hearing about this. But moving on, again, contiguous territory, identifiable geographical boundaries, contain communities of interest in a single district, the old unpopular Loop 820 rule, inside outside if possible, contain whole voting precincts, contain whole census blocks or block groups, and in this case, and here they said, do not consider the place of residence of incumbents. So they're backing away from the criterion that they had last time, because they had expressed prior to November, they expressed some dissatisfaction with that one. So with that, they went through and they had some discussion on each of these, voted on up or down on them, and ordered them in priorities. And they come up with this final set of recommendations, which was taken to the city council in December, was described the other night at Redistricting 101, and they're going to, this is what they're going to present at the upcoming hearings. So the highest, there are 5 high priority items. There was the equal size, equal population. There was the compliance with all of this Constitution, Voting Rights Act, Texas Constitution, and other applicable laws. So they borrowed all of this from the Sacramento criterion. And in addition said no packing of minority voters or fragmentation. This is wording that they got from their legal department. Create minority opportunity districts in compliance with federal law to reflect the growing of the city. So there's no metric there. They just say, as a general rule, it would be good practice to try and create opportunity districts for minority residents. Contain communities of interest in single districts, defining a community of interest as a local population with shared socioeconomic characteristics and political institutions that would benefit from united representation. And finally, contiguous territory. Then there were, in addition to that, there are these 5 lower priority requirements. Compact districts with the goal, the Polsby-Popper goal of 0.05, identifiable geographic boundaries and containing whole voting precincts and whole census blocks and block groups. And finally, do not consider the place of residence of incumbents or potential candidates. And it's this set of criteria that they're looking to hear from the public, to hear yay or nay, I agree with this, or I want you to build on that, or, you know, whatever it is that you feel about this. So they will take our comments and go and refine these and to put in their final recommendation, final report.
So what is your recommendation that they change? What are you guys recommending? Or is that on another slide?
Well, let's see. Bruce, what do you say?
Well,
you want to go?
Yeah, I'll mention just a couple of things, but I just want to back up for 1 minute. When we were talking about the percentage of minorities in the city, 40% Hispanic, 20% Black in round numbers. Well, now there are 2 Black councilwomen, and there's only 1 Hispanic. considering that considering that we're 40% Hispanic, that's the kind of issue that perhaps an independent commission could address.
Okay, that makes sense.
So just to give you that idea.
Okay.
As far as the criteria that they voted on, that Byrick just had up there, notice they have this high priority and low priority. There's a kind of problem with this. The high priority ones, that's the law. The Voting Rights Act requires that. And so by grouping them as with high priority and low priority, that might be communicating to the council or anybody that's going to adopt them that, well, maybe they don't have to take into account the lower priority ones. You see what I mean?
Yep, I do.
When really, the first group, they have nothing to say about it at all. It's really the second group that really represents the stamp of the commission, of the committee, of the task force, or the citizenry. But one thing or two things to note is that compared with the 2011 list, notice there's no inside outside the loop.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they discussed that. That was one of the hot issues that came right up in the first meeting. And the second one is do not consider the place of residence. That was also discussed. There was one task force member that kept bringing that up and saying they should really, respect that. And but they voted it. But he was the only one. They actually took a vote on that, and so it was 10-1. I was proud of them for that.
Yeah. Well, we were on board with both of those omissions, the 820 rule and the incumbent voter relations rule. So this is actually a pretty decent set of criteria, but it probably could use just a little bit more massaging.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've considered the compactness issue and the fact that the boundaries, they have to deal with the external boundaries of the city. They can't avoid that, but they can adjust the internal ones in order to have a greater degree of compactness. So Byrick, do you have the map there, the city council map?
Yeah, I'll tell you, let me show you something.
Go for it. Yeah.
Let me show you this. This is just a couple of slides here. Are you seeing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't have it in slideshow yet.
Okay, for some reason, slideshow, resume slideshow.
Yeah, that's just a PowerPoint thing.
Oh, well, why?
Maybe you have to.
It's not quite in the slideshow mode because it's showing you the actual
okay, let me see
on the left. Yeah.
Okay. Now, boy.
Maybe you need to put them both in slideshow. Oh, you can't.
Oh.
I was going to say that maybe you could do view to switch it.
There we go. Okay, that's it. All right, so what I want to show you here, this is an example of the.
So we don't have it yet. There.
Oh, do you see anything?
No, just you.
Just you.
Oh, gosh darn. All right, let me. Do you see that?
Not yet.
Gosh,
still seeing you.
All right, let me go back to share screen.
I wonder if it's a PowerPoint thing.
No, it's maybe my lack of facility.
Now we're starting to get something.
There it is.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
Boat Club Road.
PowerPoint
So this little stretch of Boat Club Road, this is up north toward this is north of this is in the northwest area, north of Lake Worth up toward Eagle Mountain Lake.
So is this near the Eagle Mountain State Park? The one that's
in that general area. And you can see there's this 1 mile area or 1 mile stretch of road where there's nothing on either side of it. There are no houses on either side of it. It's just an open road. And in the next slide, golly, do I not have, there we go. You will see that this is District
Oh.
7, okay? And if we
Mhm.
zoom right in here, this is that
Is that
mile-long
road.
stretch
Yeah.
that okay?
Isn't that
This,
remarkable?
this thin
Yeah.
strand is what connects the northern of District 7 and the southern blob of District 7. And it abuts District 2. This is unincorporated land. This is District 2. But they connected the northern
Wow.
and southern parts of District 7 by this 1 mile strand of road. And they call that contiguous.
Huh.
So this is neither compact nor contiguous. And recall, compactness and contiguity were criteria that they had in the last cycle.
Right.
And they completely ignored that in constructing this district.
So did they do that because it's unincorporated land in the middle?
They did actually, in this, the citizens submitted 9 or 10 of their own plans, and none of them had this feature.
Right.
All of them included, they might have included different areas for District 7. District 7 used to be down here, and this used to be more of District 2 up in here. But the districts kind of moved counterclockwise. So this northern area became District 7, and they left some of these people in District 7, and they tried to combine them this way.
Wow.
The staff, the citizens' plans had more of this area as District 7 so that there was more continuity here. But
Sure.
the staff basically hollowed it out so that there's just this one stretch of road. So that's a really glaring, sort of a glaring repudiation of their own criteria right there. I brought it up just to sort of show you.
That's the most glaring one. Yeah.
Yeah. But let me go ahead and share with you the ones that you wanted me to show, which was on the compactness.
Actually, that was the one I did want you to show.
Oh, the Boat Club Road was
right. Yeah, just
oh, okay,
to give
all
an
right.
idea of how bad things can get.
Yeah. All right. What I was going to show now, this is getting into some technical weeds here. You see this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Metrics are sort of a good idea because, looking down the road, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, the redistricting software that they use will probably have artificial intelligence, and machines will probably be drawing these districts. So, you can tell a machine to obey, to compute things. It's kind of hard to tell a machine to obey the Voting Rights Act. And so it's a great thing that they came up with a metric for compactness, but the Polsby Popper gives you a very tiny number, and you wonder, well, is there a better test for it? So this is the drawing that you've been wanting to see, Lori, which lays out which gives you the layout of our city council districts. So as you see, District 7, there was
God, it's huge.
and then it's down here.
Right. Huge,
this is
very disjointed.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Even
Right.
4 is a little weird.
4 is weird. It's this strange L shape.
And 5 is pretty odd. It looks like a violin almost. It's got that long neck.
But 5 they're kind of pushed into 5 because of the city boundaries.
Right.
You see.
Right. Basically, this is the boundary of Fort Worth, and it's very unusual.
Yeah.
You're just looking at the
God, it goes
Trinity Boulevard.
doesn't
This
it?
is just the Trinity Boulevard corridor. There's not a lot of, just some development here, and it picks up this area close to Farmers Branch and DFW Airport,
Wow.
and then some minority area here. So you're going to have some of this elongation. You're stuck with that because that is area that Fort Worth has annexed, and there will probably be further annexations to the west as well, west and maybe south. Who knows? So a lot of this irregularity comes from the fact that there are donuts, like entire cities inside the Fort Worth boundary, and then these are existing cities here, and the reason I'm kind of guessing that District 4 is L-shaped is because there's probably something about this area that connects these people. Maybe all these people do their shopping in North Richland Hills Mall. That's the only thing I can figure.
That's an amusing point. Maybe so.
It might be for real. I don't know. District 2 is the so-called Hispanic district. So it goes up to the loop around Saginaw and the Stockyards. District 3 is ours, which goes to the very west. District 6, Jungus Jordans, is all the southern Fort Worth. District 9 includes downtown and around the Trinity River and historic South Side.
So is that in Zetas?
Yes, that's in Zetas, right.
Okay, and 3 is Birds.
Yes,
then.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. 2 is Carlos Flores. 8 is Kellyanne Gray's area, and 5 is Gina Bivens. 4 is Carrie Moon. And Dennis Shingleton is District 7. So you can see that these compactness scores are all sort of uniformly low. I mean, you don't get beyond 20% in District 9 here. And the reason for that is that Polsby-Popper metric is if you took this perimeter and you pumped it with air and blew it up like a balloon into a circle, so that you have a circle with the same circumference as the perimeter of this district, and then you take the ratio of the areas, there's a lot of excess area here. And there's a similar, and the Polsby-Popper test score for District 4 is just about 0.128.
Right.
There's a similar metric in the software called REOC, where you take the smallest circle that circumscribes a district and then take the areas. And the trouble with these circle areas is these circle methods is they give you a lot of excess area. There's a corollary to the circle area where you take a district that has the same area and make a circle out of that, and then you take the ratio of the two perimeters. That gives you a little bigger number. So at least it looks better on paper. But the metric that I think is probably the best one to use is called convex hull. And you can think about it as taking and wrapping a rubber band around the district, and then taking the ratio of the polygon and the district. And all of these methods are in the redistricting software that the city uses. And I would go a step further and say, hey, you could modify this rubber band approach by not taking a penalty for the city limits, by actually, where there's a city limit, where there's a city limit, don't include this area, but make the rubber band bound the city limits so that you get a closer metric. You don't penalize yourself for an irregular city limit boundary. And that's something that I would like to suggest to the task force to consider. It's not in the Esri software, but if Fort Worth, the software developers would put it in, and every other city in the country would use it, because all cities have this problem.
Okay.
I told Byrick it's going to bear his name.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Ellison, right, the Ellison
metric
test.
Yeah.
Okay, I will suggest that. I will suggest that they call it the Ellison test. All right. Let's see. Was there anything else that we wanted to share? Oh, you know what? I tell you what. While we're on that, can I talk about precincts?
Yes, but before you do,
Okay.
so let's just kind of have the big picture is that we favor an independent commission. And when they first started these meetings, we thought it was hopeless. So we tried to look at every detail of what they were doing. As the meetings proceeded, it became clear that there were a few members in their task force that also really favored an independent commission. So that's why we kept pushing for that as well. So basically, we've got this kind of two-pronged attack, if you want to call it, or approach, and that is to make sure we ask for an independent commission and have some things that we can explain why that should be considered, as well as looking at the actual details of the individual criteria they're looking at, like the compactness, for example, like the boat club road situation that really has to be addressed. So one of the problems in making the districts is that they have to go along with the existing precinct boundaries. And Byrick has really investigated that carefully.
Yeah. So, as much as we would like to see, a disinterested, independent group of citizens drawing these maps, if you want to see more rational shapes in these maps, it comes down to the granular shape of our voting. And here's the process. The first thing that happens is these voting precincts, they have to conform to the governmental units of U.S. congressional districts, state legislative, Senate and House districts, judicial districts, the State Board of Education districts, and the county commissioners districts. So there are 6 sets of governmental units that our precincts have to conform to. And, about half of those are drawn in, 4 of them are drawn in Austin, and the other 2 drawn at the county level. Once those boundaries are determined, the county election office draws the precincts based on those boundaries that were established for those governmental entities, and be partly based on existing historical precinct boundaries. And then the county commissioners vote on them, and only then downstream does the city council then get to use those precincts to construct its own boundaries. So the council is confined or constrained to use those granular and in many cases irregular precinct boundaries to build its district. And this is a big problem. An independent redistricting commission will not fix this. and it might seem like the city council is powerless to fix this unless the city council tries to push back. You can't push back, but you can break up the things further to try to smooth out the boundaries. So I'm going to, I'd like to show you a little cartoon that I created, if I can find it.
I need to warn you guys too that I'm just about out of power.
Okay. Well, then we'll get on with it. So I'm going to show you an area of East Fort Worth between Bridge Street and Meadowbrook, Boulevard. So this is what the precincts looked like in 2010. Very smooth. This is Brentwood Stair.
Yep.
And now they introduced these jagged areas, and I'm going to zero in
Ah,
the little sawtooth area here around
it's a little
Brentwood
cracking.
Stair Road. You can see how they took this neighborhood of homes and cut this out. So
Yeah.
and this is what it looks like on the ground. Here's District 5, District 4. These people who live across the street
Or
from
in
one
different
another
districts.
have different, yeah. Now here's a
Yeah.
different cutout near across from Eastern Hills High School. So
Wow.
here's this
That's
cutout.
crazy.
See these houses? Not
Mhm.
only is this a different District 4 and 5 boundary, but it's also the boundary between, and we're going to zoom out in a minute here, it's the district boundary between Congressional District 33, Mark Veazey's district, which goes out to Farmers Branch and DFW, and District 6, which is Ron Wright's, that has half a million people down here, and Ellis and Navarro counties there. And so these people live in different congressional districts and city council districts. And this
Wow.
was drawn by the House Redistricting, this was drawn in Austin.
Yep.
Now,
Jeez.
there's no fixing the congressional district thing. That was a thing that they do in Austin, but we could break up the precinct so as to at least put these people in the same council district. That is doable.
Yeah.
And so this is something that I would urge the council to do.
I wonder if Austin is doing that because of some kind of gerrymandering that's going on.
Oh, sure.
That's what I would say.
So then we're being forced to live with their gerrymandering.
Mhm.
Right. One terrible constraint that they have is that they try to make all of the congressional districts exactly equal population. I mean, there's not more than about people difference between one congressional district and another, and that seems to be part of law. So that seems to be a constraint that they have at the congressional district that we don't have for the other governmental units. You recall this plus or minus 5% rule that they use for other districts. Evidently, that's not in place for congressional districts. But there is serious gerrymandering done. I mean, when you have a district like, actually, that's not being shown. Oh, let me go here. Okay, yeah, let me stop there. When you draw a district that has 500,000 people in southeast Tarrant County, and you're combining them with Ellis and Navarro, this is unnecessary. What you're doing, this is where you have a significant minority community in here, and not here. So
diluting them.
You see a significant minority community here in Dallas County, and then about 5 or 11 counties out here, you see the game that's being played.
You sure do.
Yeah. And by the same token, Kay Granger's district, you have Fort Worth here,
and then you have
Parker, and then this, this is, what is this?
It's not Denton.
This is about 25,000 people here, which could easily have come from Tarrant County. And this district is whose is this?
That's Denton, isn't it? Denton
County? This is Denton. This isn't Marchand. This is what's his name? I forget. But he's grabbing 165,000 people from Tarrant County.
Right.
Okay.
It's crazy.
So there's definitely some cracking going on in our area these are our congressional districts. I'm getting off topic.
Right.
But I've covered everything that I intended to with these charts. So I'm going to go back to our grid view. We've run about 20 minutes long.
Yeah, Lori, I would just want to applaud you for your patience.
Yeah, thank
No,
you.
you did a good job. You
And
did
your
a good job
focus.
of explaining it.
Yeah, your focus too. So was this been helpful? Are there some questions?
Yeah.
to
No, it's
push over?
very helpful. I don't know. I hope you don't have great expectations of me being at the public meetings. I would certainly be there for you as support, but I don't think I have enough solid of a background to
We
really,
understand. But
to
you
be
can
a,
also submit a written comment, couldn't you?
okay.
Bruce, that's a question for Bruce.
I don't have an answer for that.
I think you can. I mean,
but
why not?
But Lori, yeah, you can for regular city council meetings.
Well, I'm sure that
Yeah.
thing that you submit in writing to the task force, they
Yeah.
would, they would take. Yeah. So if you didn't feel comfortable getting up for the it would be a forum like this, a Zoom meeting, where they'd give you a call and then you have your
Right.
3 minutes.
Right.
But you could certainly, and I'm getting a note that my connection is unstable, so I might fade out
Drop
here.
off. Yeah.
You could certainly put together, a well-crafted paragraph supporting an independent redistricting commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
And submit it to Mary Kaiser, the city secretary.